And good Tuesday evening to you. I am Josh Johnson. You are watching our First Alert Live conversation about Hurricane Milton. We will carry this until almost 10 o'clock tonight so that we can get in that new National Hurricane Center advisory. That will come out momentarily. Some of you are watching this on the WSFA family of apps, our weather app, our news app. Some of you watching this on Facebook or YouTube. If you are watching on the WSFA app, I would encourage you pull up the Facebook stream as well. And if you have any questions, fire away. I'll do my best to answer those. I won't always be right, but I will always be honest. I will tell you what I think is going to happen with this historic hurricane that we're dealing with right now. What I've been doing is going over the latest vortex message. That's from the National Hurricane Center's situation with the hurricane hunters. Their last vortex message out was, let's see, not terribly long ago, 2Z, so we're talking 8 o'clock or so. So they were in it about an hour ago. Closed eye wall. Nothing else really jumps out off the page here. Maximum flight level wind they measured was 142 knots, so they measured that's 160-ish miles per hour. 6 mile wide eye. Yeah, pretty intense hurricane, no doubt about it. This remains Category 5 storm. We'll get that new full update from the National Hurricane Center. Again, they're usually pretty good about popping it out early. It is scheduled for 10 p.m., but typically they're able to get it out 9:45, 9:50. So we will begin with a quick interpretation of the satellite data around Milton. What we have here is a compact, just buzzsaw of a hurricane. This thing is wound up. That eye 6 miles across, that's a very tight eye that's creating some just horrific wind within this. We're also able, using our advanced law firm Storm Track Zone, to take you down in here, show you some wave heights. This is computer model generated information, but typically they're pretty good, suggesting 20-foot waves right around it. Now understand there's also a thing called storm surge, which is where the entire level of the ocean comes up. Right now I would suggest to you that this storm is probably creating 20 feet of storm surge. So the net would be the entire ocean comes up 20 feet, and then there are waves 20 feet tall crashing on top of that. That's a really tough situation. Thankfully right now that's all out over the water, but it's not going to stay that way. Let me show you this. This is the National Hurricane Center's probability of hurricane force winds on a sustained basis. Now, you'll notice this is the center line of the track now, takes this in between Tampa and Naples. So just south of Tampa, closer to Port Charlotte, Bradenton area. So a track like that, by the way, might help us out in Tampa Bay. Now, one person's doom will be another person's best hope in this scenario, right? A track south of Tampa would save Tampa Bay from significant flooding, or at least historic flooding. There will still be flooding in Tampa Bay either way, but maybe it's more moderate to severe flooding instead of historic flooding. If the track goes over or north of Tampa Bay, it's a much different story. It's a catastrophic, historic kind of thing. So these are hurricane force wind probabilities. They're pretty high even inland. But notice this, I've been telling a lot of people to get even a little inland because the chance of hurricane force winds are smaller even inland, right? So you get away from the coast, that means you're eliminating your risk of storm surge. Your wind situation is better. It's still not good, but it's better. And you would have to deal with some scattered pockets of freshwater flooding, right? Lakes, rivers, low-lying areas, things like that. If you have family or friends that are down here, they need to be wherever they're going to be by noon tomorrow. So there's still plenty of time. If they got in the car right now and left driving north on 75, I know there's a lot of traffic, but they would be well out of the strike zone by the time this thing arrives. So it is still not too late. In fact, I'll use Google Maps and we'll put in Tampa, Florida, and we'll do a quick little traffic analysis on this whole thing. Let's say you wanted to drive to Dothan, Alabama, which that would get you totally out of this whole thing. It's 5.5 hours if you left right now, right? So You're arriving at 2 in the morning, but there are plenty of hotel rooms in Dothan. And quite frankly, you don't even have to go that far. If you got to Tallahassee, you're out of the way. If you got to Live Oak or Madison, you're out of the way. Now, some of you would be tempted to stay on 75 and go up to Valdosta or Tifton. Let me caution you there. The issue with that plan would be those areas were hit hard by Hurricane Helene, and a lot of the hotels around there likely are occupied by power crews. So just understand, if you have family or friends that are wanting to leave, it is not too late to do that. It will be soon. If they wait until 10 a.m. tomorrow, 8 a.m. tomorrow, that's too late. I think the absolute get out of their time is probably around 5 a.m. in the morning. So 5 o'clock tomorrow morning. That is Tampa. Melissa says they're recommending not going north now on I-75. Lots of stations have no gas. But the thing is, though, by the time you get to if you leave Tampa going to, let's say, Lake City, Florida, so that gets you up to Interstate 10, it's 171 miles. Now, for most vehicles, that's around a half a tank. Everyone's mileage is different, but you would, if you left Tampa with a half a tank of gas, you would make it all the way up to Lake City, which would be a much better situation to be in. So, with Melissa's input there if she's talking south of Tampa, okay, I get that. Yeah, if you're south of Tampa, your best bet evacuation-wise would probably be just to get to the other side of the state. Get up there, get over towards that West Palm, Boca, Melbourne area. Don't get too close to the water, but that's probably your best bet at that point. So, Melissa, I appreciate that. I've seen a lot of reports about the gas situation in Florida today. So, it seems like it's pretty tricky. Okay, 10 o'clock advisory in. It's at 160 now. So, let me do this. This will take a little graphical freestyling, if you will, but I will show you that new track just in from the National Hurricane Center. The 10 o'clock advisory just out moments ago, literally hot off the press. We don't say that anymore, do we? Jackie asked, 20 miles inland, how bad would the wind be possibly? It would be bad. I mean, you're talking probably 100, 120 mile per hour winds, gust inland. Milton will be losing some wind speed as it approaches the coast. It's forecast to drop below Category 5 intensity by 8 o'clock tomorrow morning and then to make landfall in there as a high-end 3 or low-end 4 storm. Let me go over the latest forecast discussion and understand I'm seeing this for the first time as we're talking to you here. Hurricane remains Category 5 intensity. They did drop it down to 140 knots, so it's at 160. That is still Category 5, but not quite as high as it was a moment ago. Milton's turning towards the left. The official track forecast is very similar to the previous one. It's critical to remember that even at 24 hours out, it is still not possible to pinpoint an exact landfall location. Will maintain hurricane strength. It will still be an extremely dangerous major hurricane when it reaches shore. And as they put this line right here in every discussion that they have issued for the last day and a half. I'll read you the whole thing, but the last sentence is really what gets your attention. This is a very serious situation, and residents in Florida should closely follow orders from their local emergency management officials. Evacuations or other preparations should be completed tonight. You heard that already. Milton has the potential to be one of the most destructive hurricanes on record for West Central Florida. So, again, get out, get out, get out. Evacuation routes bumper to bumper, that would be detrimental to usual gas consumption. And look, that is true. There's no easy answer here. I understand that. But if you live within 5 miles of the ocean or the Gulf down in this part of the world, the Tampa area, southward back down towards Naples, it's a risk you're going to have to take. If you run out of gas, there's answers there too. Walk to the closest hotel you can find. Walk to the closest house you can find. See if you can find a nice, good Samaritan to help out. Obviously, we don't want you to run out of gas, right? That's key. But if you live within a couple of miles of the ocean, south of Tampa, I'd take my odds of running out of gas before I would mess with this storm. That's just me personally. Look, I call it like I see it. Venice to Tampa is 5.5 hours. Whew, that's tough. Caroline asked, what about evacuating south? That's actually not a bad idea. There will still be wind and squally weather and not great weather in South Florida, south of the track. But again, you've got to get out away from the ocean and the Gulf of Mexico and the bays. That's the secret to the drill here. So that's your updated track from the Hurricane Center. Let me show you this too. There is absolutely no data, no chance that this comes back and circles into the Gulf of Mexico. Some knucklehead put out a TikTok video saying that was going to happen. I've had it sent to me about 10 times today. There is no evidence of that whatsoever. And let me just make a personal plea here. TikTok is a really great place for funny videos about cats and people falling down and jokes and dance routines. TikTok is not a great place to get scientific information because you don't know the person who's producing it or if they have any idea what in the world they're talking about. There was a thing earlier this week where someone did a TikTok video, was shared hundreds of thousands of times, wondering why the moon had disappeared and accusing the government of making the moon disappear. The moon goes through phases. One of those phases is called a new moon. That's when the moon is essentially darkened out. You can't see it anymore. It's a naturally occurring process that has to do with the angle of the sun and how it hits the moon. So please, 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 there are so many apps out there. Well, look, we would love it if you get it from us. We take great care to give you good information. We work very hard at it. This storm is not even coming to Alabama, and I've been working 14, 15, 16 hours a day since Sunday trying to get good information to you. But there's so many apps out there that are better than TikTok to get scientific information from. Just please, please, please keep that in mind. If you see something on TikTok, understand, even if it's a slick, well-produced video, it may be totally bogus. So that's my personal plea. Back roads out of Florida could potentially work. Remy asked about where they're going to go south in the water. Look, there is where this track is in Florida, right? Let me go over to the other system here and draw this a little. We'll clean the data up here. Go over to no data, actually. So we suspect there's going to be really bad hurricane-type conditions in this part of the state right here. So we'll just kind of square out our box here. This part of the state right here, really tough hurricane conditions. The most deadly part of it will be along the immediate coastline over here on the west coast of Florida. On the east coast of Florida, you'll still deal with wind and rain and all that, but it won't be as deadly because the storm surge will not affect this part of the state nearly as badly. If you go to one of these places on the east side of the state, don't get a hotel right on the ocean. Try to stay back a little bit. However, if you were to drive south down to Fort Lauderdale or Miami or West Palm even, things there are not going to be nearly as bad. Remember, as of right now, Milton is still a relatively compact storm. This isn't a Helene or a Katrina that's 1,000 miles across. This hurricane is more like 200 or 300 miles across. It's still a big storm from a size standpoint, but Milton is very much the center part of it is really, really, really bad. But if you can be 300 miles south of the center part of it, you're going to be in much better shape. So, Remy, I get where you're coming from. That is an unusual thing, right, to tell people to evacuate south in Florida. But in this specific circumstance, it's actually not a bad idea. It actually works out. So there you go. Yet the storm surge really won't affect South Florida near as much. Again, if you're talking to somebody, family or friends, and they say, hey, we're going to evacuate down to Port St. Lucie, look, don't get a hotel a block from the ocean. That's still a bad idea. But if you get a hotel 3, 4, 5 miles inland, there's no risk of storm surge getting you there. Just get away from the water and you'll be fine. Easier said than done in that part of Florida, by the way. So there's some planning that would have to happen, and it has to happen quick because, again, by tomorrow morning, this is all too late. Gas Buddy app tells you where you can find gas. Okay. What category was Hurricane Andrew? It was a 5. U.S. highways might be a better option. They might be, yeah. And I possess no specific great knowledge about traffic patterns right now. I can tell you Google Maps says Tampa to Lake City is 2.5 hours away, and that's 171 miles. So I think on 75, as of this precise moment, traffic is manageable. Now, that will change tomorrow morning when a lot of people wake up and try to get out at the last minute, and that could be a disaster. That's why I'm telling you, if you are in communication with someone who's considering evacuating, right now is actually a really good time to do it. Look, get a cup of coffee. You're going to be tired, sleepy. I get that, but traffic is not severe right now, and you've got some time to make that work for you. So, what if your in-laws are in Orange County and are disabled and can't leave? Call the local emergency management agency and ask them for advice or an option. And I need to look up where Orange County, Florida is located. So Orange County is Orlando. Okay, in Orlando, the idea is, unless they have a bunch of really tall, huge trees looming over their house, which most of the time in Orlando they don't, just hunker down. Stay in place Wednesday, Thursday, and plan on the likelihood of power outages that could last several days. But in Orlando, I don't think the need to evacuate is really that great. So, South Florida is on the, Remy, it's on the very far east side of the storm. Remember, it's a relatively small storm, right? And look, I'm not saying you're going to go to Miami and it's going to be sunny. I'm saying you're going to go to Miami and the chance of something really bad happening to you is going to go way down. The weather's still going to be not fun in Miami. It will be windy. It will be wet. Once you get to Miami, you would need to get somewhere and stay inside. But I'm saying the chance of significant property damage, bad outcomes is much less in Miami than it is in Tampa or Bradenton or Sarasota. So there you go. Is it likely interstates going to be blocked, closed off after the storm in Central Florida? That's possible, sure. They're usually pretty good about clearing them. Look, Florida's done this before a lot of times. So I suspect those, particularly the big roads, the interstates, the U.S. highways, I think those types of situations would be brief in nature. But don't be out driving Wednesday night, really anytime after noon Wednesday through sunrise Friday. Just stay indoors. Stay off the roads. So Kingsland, Georgia, what about the wind? More nuisance than high impact for Kingsland. It will be breezy and blustery. I don't think it will be something that is off the charts dangerous. Again, stay indoors. Don't be out driving in it, and you'll be just fine. So there you go. Trying to go through more of these questions. Again, in Orange County, Florida, I don't think there's a huge need to evacuate. That's more of a hunker down area than a get out area. So, any idea how much damage Milton did in Mexico? No, I really don't know. That's a good question, though. It did. The eye never moved inland, but the outer bands did and probably did some damage. So, people are telling Share to get people to a shelter. I mean, if they're comfortable in their home and they have mobility issues, I think their home in Orange County is the best place for them to be. Unless they live right next to some huge river or something, without knowing the specifics, it's hard to give this specific of advice, but there's no real need to evacuate in the Orlando, Kissimmee, Christmas area. Okay, now they're in a camper. Okay, well, that's a little different, right? Best case there's probably, the original advice. I would go back to that. Call your local emergency management agency, ask them where the shelter is, and ask if they have any services that would provide like a pickup drop-off thing, would be my advice. All right, hey, I hate to wind this thing down, but it's 9:58. We've got to do WSFA 12 News at 10. It starts in 1 minute. You can stream it live on the WSFA family of apps or watch it on your television. We hope to see you there. We'll have news, sports, and weather, and of course, all this about Milton. We'll talk more about it. If you have additional questions, leave them on this as a comment. I'll come back and answer them by typing your response during the 10 o'clock news. Thanks so much. Hope you all have a wonderful evening, and we'll do another one of these with Nick Gunner on the WSFA apps tomorrow morning at 10:30, and then I'll do more